You ever think you know someone inside and out until one random event flips everything on its head? That's what happened to me. I never imagined a family wedding could set off a storm in my marriage. Turns out, keeping quiet about something you never thought mattered might just make you the bad guy. But am I really the one to blame? Her name is Ellie, my cousin on my dad's side, only a year younger than me, but somehow always 5 steps ahead. Growing up, she was the kind of girl who didn't dream small. While the rest of us were trying to figure out if we wanted to go to college or just get a job, Ellie was already sketching out plans for a farm of her own. An actual farm, not the fantasy ones little kids talk about. And you know what? She made it happen. By the time she hit her mid-20s, she had land, livestock, and a steady income rolling in. Everyone thought she just worked herself into that position. And to be fair, she did. But what no one outside our tight-knit circle really talks about is what happened before all that. See, Ellie didn't just make it. She hit the kind of jackpot most people can't even wrap their heads around. Back in her early 20s, Ellie won a ridiculous amount of money. I'm talking walk into any store, buy whatever you want without checking the tag kind of money. Life-changing, generational. And what did she do with it? She didn't run off to Paris or buy a mansion with gold toilets. She stayed put, bought her dream farm, built a life, used the money to send her siblings and even some cousins through college. She's already set up a trust that'll cover the education of every kid in our extended family, including any children I may have someday. But here's the crazy part. If you met her at the grocery store, you'd never know. Ellie doesn't flaunt it. She wears worn-in jeans and boots caked in mud, drives a beat-up Bronco her husband gave her after she had their third baby. She spends most of her time in the fields, hair tied back, baby on one hip, and a shovel in the other. And that's what I admire most about her. She never let the money change the parts of her that really mattered. So why am I telling you all this? Because somehow, even with all of that, I never thought it was important to tell my wife, Samantha, just how wealthy Ellie really is. Why would I? It's not like Ellie lives in a mansion on a hill. Her life looks like hard work, not high-end luxury. She doesn't have designer handbags or post selfies from exotic beaches. She lives in the same county as us, shops at the same hardware store, and drops off baskets of fresh eggs and veggies like it's nothing. It never felt like a secret. It was just Ellie. But maybe the better question is, why didn't I think Samantha would care? Or more honestly, why didn't I think she'd make it a big deal? Samantha and I have been together for 3 years, married for a little over 1. She's a nurse practitioner in a specialty field, makes great money, drives a luxury car, and she worked her butt off to get there. I admire her ambition, but she's also someone who needs people to know she's made it. She talks about her income like it's her badge of honor. And while I've never held that against her, it definitely sets her apart from most of my family. Most of them tolerate her for my sake. Polite smiles, small talk at gatherings, but never fully warm. I always chalked it up to the culture clash, my family's low-key country roots versus Samantha's more flashy, status-driven world. But maybe I should have seen it coming. Maybe I should have asked myself, what happens when someone who needs to be the success story realizes they're not the richest person in the room? The moment it all unraveled came during my cousin Ellie's hosting of another cousin's wedding. We were out at her farm for the first time since the renovations. She'd cleared out the massive barn, strung up lights, had tables overlooking the pond, and laid out handmade centerpieces that looked like something off Pinterest, but better. It was gorgeous, but not flashy, thoughtful, not over the top, the kind of beautiful that feels like home. And it was the first time Samantha had ever seen Ellie's property. I should have known something was off the moment we pulled up. Samantha stepped out of the car in her heels, yes, heels, on a farm, and just stood there taking it all in. Her eyes moved from the barn to the wide fields, then up to the house in the distance. "This is her place?" she asked. Her voice clipped and quiet, but I heard the edge in it. I nodded, a little confused. "Yeah, this is Ellie's farm. She's been working on it for years." Her expression didn't change. She didn't smile, didn't compliment the setup, just smoothed her dress and walked toward the crowd. I figured she was just thrown off. Maybe she wasn't expecting such a big production. Maybe she didn't feel comfortable in a space where she didn't know many people. But as the evening went on, it became clear. Samantha wasn't just surprised, she was angry, and I had no idea why. It wasn't until the drive home that I found out. I cannot believe you didn't tell me your cousin is rich, she snapped, not even waiting for me to buckle my seatbelt. I walked around that place like a fool thinking she was some broke farm girl with a chicken coop and a few tomatoes. I blinked, stunned. Why would you think she was broke? You never said anything about her being loaded. You always talk about her like she's just normal. I thought she had a little hobby farm or something. I felt humiliated. That last word stung more than I expected. Humiliated? I couldn't help but ask, by what exactly? That you didn't know someone had money because they don't show it off. She didn't answer, just stared out the window like the silence could justify her anger. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't about Ellie. This was about status, about how Samantha saw herself, and how important it was for her to be at the top of the food chain in every room she walked into. I hadn't told her about Ellie's wealth, because in my world, that wasn't the most important thing about Ellie. But in Samantha's world, it was. I started to feel a little angry myself. Do you even hear how that sounds? I asked, trying to stay calm. You're mad at me because someone you thought was beneath you turned out to have more money than you. What does that say about how you treat people? She turned on me then, full force. You made me look stupid, Caleb. You let me walk in there thinking I was the one everyone should be impressed by. And instead, I was the one who looked small. And maybe that was the real root of it. Not that I kept something from her, but that for once, she wasn't the center of the spotlight. But here's the question I kept asking myself, and maybe you can too. When did knowing someone's bank balance become the only way to measure their worth? The days that followed that wedding were tense. Thick silence over morning coffee, clipped conversations, forced smiles that didn't reach our eyes. I could feel the tension simmering just under the surface, like a pot about to boil over. And no matter how many times I tried to move past it, Samantha wouldn't let it go. Every small moment became a dig. If I mentioned Ellie in passing, maybe just that she dropped off some fresh eggs or that I'd swung by the farm, Samantha's tone would shift. Oh, must be nice, she'd say, her voice laced with something I couldn't quite name. Bitterness, jealousy, insecurity. I didn't understand it. Still don't, if I'm being honest. Why was she so shaken by this? Why did it matter so much that Ellie had money, especially when she'd never acted like it mattered herself? I finally asked her one night as we were cleaning up dinner. The dishes clinked loudly in the sink, the only sound between us for a few minutes before I spoke. Samantha, why does it bother you so much that Ellie's wealthy? She looked at me like I'd asked her something absurd. Because Caleb, I look like an idiot. I talked to her like we were doing her a favor by inviting her into our world. And really, we were barely scratching the surface of hers. There was that word again, embarrassed. As if her pride had taken such a hit it couldn't recover. And I couldn't help but say what I'd been holding in. You didn't look like an idiot because you didn't know, Sam. You look like an idiot because you treated her like someone beneath you. That landed hard. She stared at me, stunned, like I'd just slapped her. Was I too harsh? Maybe. But in that moment I was tired. Tired of her obsession with appearances. Tired of pretending that money was the only metric that counted. Tired of her never seeing how much value people had beyond their income bracket. That's when the real fight started. You think I'm some gold-digging, status-chasing trophy wife? Don't you? She snapped, arms crossed, voice sharp. You think I don't see the way your family looks at me, the way you look at me sometimes? I sighed. I think you care too much about how people see you, and I think sometimes you forget how to just be real. And it hurt to say that because I love Samantha. I still do. But when did she stop being the woman who was proud of her work and start needing everyone else to constantly admire it? When did success stop being something we shared and start becoming a competition? Have you ever loved someone so much but still felt like you were speaking two different languages? That's where I found myself. Watching this woman I married spiral over something that, to me, shouldn't have mattered at all. She asked me if I'd kept Ellie's wealth a secret on purpose. I told her the truth. I didn't think it was relevant. Ellie's my cousin. She's family. I see her for who she is, not what she's worth. But that didn't satisfy her. Because in Samantha's mind, knowledge is power, and she didn't like that I had it, and she didn't. And that's when I started to ask myself a painful question I wasn't ready to answer yet. What happens when the person you love starts resenting the people who never meant to threaten her? The next family gathering was a birthday party for my niece, held at a local park just a few miles from our house. Nothing fancy, grilled burgers, folding chairs, a cooler full of soda, but it was the kind of thing my family does best. Simple, warm, familiar. And of course, the park had Ellie's name on it. Not literally, but close. A massive banner stretched across the fence near the playground, thanking the local businesses that helped fund its renovation. Right there in bold lettering were the names of her husband's welding company and her farm. I didn't even think twice about it when we walked past, but I felt Samantha slow down beside me. Her eyes locked on the banner, and I could practically hear the gears grinding in her head. "Really?" she muttered under her breath, loud enough for only me to hear. I didn't respond. What was there to say? She already knew. It was right in front of her. The tension carried through the rest of the party. She was polite enough, smiled, made small talk, but she wasn't present. Her mind was elsewhere, and I could see it every time Ellie spoke, and Samantha's jaw tightened ever so slightly. It was like she couldn't separate the person from the money, couldn't just see my cousin for who she was, not what she had. When we got home that evening, Samantha kicked off her shoes and tossed her purse down with a sigh. "I can't believe how obsessed your whole family is with her." I turned to her slowly, confused. "What are you talking about?" "Ellie, they talk about her like she's some kind of saint, like she's better than the rest of us." "She's not better," I said, keeping my voice calm. "She's generous. She's helped a lot of people. That doesn't make her better, it just makes her good." Samantha sat down hard on the couch, rubbing her temples. "It just feels like I can't compete. Like no matter what I do, I'll always be the flashy one or the show-off or whatever label your family has stuck on me." And I finally saw it for what it was. Not just jealousy, not even pride. It was fear. Fear that she didn't belong. Fear that no matter how hard she worked, she'd never earn the same kind of quiet respect Ellie seemed to draw effortlessly. But how do you comfort someone who sees every kind gesture as a threat? How do you love someone who feels smaller just because someone else doesn't feel the need to look big? I sat down next to her. "You don't have to compete with Ellie. No one asked you to." "That's easy for you to say," she shot back. "You didn't spend that wedding being stared at like some outsider." I paused. "Or maybe you just felt like one. Maybe no one was judging you but yourself." That landed. She didn't say anything for a while, just sat there looking past me, lost in thought. Why is it so hard for us to admit when we feel inadequate? Why do we armor up with pride and status when what we really need is connection and grace? I reached for her hand. "You're not in a race, Sam. No one's keeping score but you." She looked down at our hands and whispered, "Then why do I feel like I'm losing?" And in that moment, I didn't have the answer. In the weeks that followed, things didn't go back to normal. Not exactly. There was this quiet distance between us, not loud, not dramatic, but present, like a low hum beneath the surface of everything we did. We still had dinner together, still laughed occasionally, still curled up on the couch at night. But something had shifted. Sometimes love doesn't break with a bang. Sometimes it frays. I found myself thinking more about the fight, about all the little things that led to it. Not just Samantha's reaction to Ellie, but the way she talked about money, about image, about being seen. I started to ask myself questions I never had before. When did my wife become more invested in how she looked than how she lived? When did I stop bringing her into the parts of my life that mattered most? And maybe the hardest one, were we building the same kind of life or just two separate lives under the same roof? Then one night out of nowhere, Samantha sat beside me with her legs tucked under her and said, "Do you think I'm a bad person?" It took me a second to respond. Not because I thought she was, but because I could see how deeply that question hurt her to ask. "No," I said softly, "I think you're someone who's worked really hard to prove herself, and maybe you're still afraid no one sees it." She looked at me with tears in her eyes, eyes that rarely cried. "I hate that I felt so small just because Ellie's rich. That's not who I want to be." And there it was, vulnerability, the thing we'd been missing it all along. I reached for her hand. "You're not small, Sam, but you don't have to be the biggest in every room to feel valuable. You can just be you. She let out a shaky breath and nodded. And maybe I need to stop judging people based on what I think they have, because it turns out some people are rich in ways I never even saw. We sat there in silence, the kind that's less about absence and more about understanding, a stillness that lets you feel the weight of everything unspoken finally settling. Who do we become when we stop performing and start listening? Who are we when we let go of comparison? I won't say everything's perfect now. Samantha still has her edges, and so do I. But there's more honesty between us now, more grace. She even asked me to take her back to the farm, to see Ellie again, not out of obligation, but because she wants to learn, wants to reconnect, maybe even apologize. And me, I've learned something too. I used to think love meant protecting your partner from hurt, even if it meant omitting the truth. But now I realize love is trusting them with the whole story, even the parts you don't think matter, especially those. So was I the bad guy for not telling Samantha my cousin was wealthy? Maybe. I didn't hide it maliciously, but I didn't consider how much it would mean to her or how much it would challenge her sense of self. But more than that, maybe I was wrong for assuming she wouldn't grow from it, for underestimating her. Turns out, we both had some growing to do. And maybe that's what marriage is at the end of the day, not being right all the time, but being willing to face the mess and walk through it together. What would you do if you were in my shoes? If the person you love felt threatened by someone who never meant to compete, would you defend them, challenge them, or stay silent? I'd love to hear how you see it. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective truly matters. And if you felt something during this story, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It's how I'll know you're with me, walking through this mess of love, pride, and family. Sometimes knowing you're not alone makes all the difference. Thanks for listening. Truly, it means more than you know.